yourself, Tom. See, my mouth always gets me in trouble.
Right.
You don't have to. I know, right? It's good.
No on that one.
You missed
Throw out what we need.
Come Margaret, come. Come Margaret, come.
Either way you want to. No, it said start immediately after the meeting, after the public hearing. 2 hours later. Okay, that's fine.
You ready?
Not me.
All right, I guess I'd like to call to order the September 15th Board of Public Works regular meeting. After the public hearing, start with the invocation, I suppose. Lord, we pray that you guide our actions today to come to conclusions that benefit all affected. Shall your wisdom enable our actions, discussions, and eventualities to bring only the best outcomes for us all. We thank you for keeping us safe and allowing the dangers of the work done by the good men and women of this organization to keep away. Thank you for all you have done in your name. Amen.
Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Do I hear a motion to approve the consent agenda as printed on the agenda?
John, and not to tell you what to do, but
You're going
technically, I'm going to. Technically, you should call the roll. I know nobody left, but there's no record of that, so you really ought to go ahead and call the roll again.
Call the roll?
Yeah. I know that sounds dumb, but technically you should.
Is that the technical?
Yeah.
I haven't read Robert's Rules of Orders, but I was given a copy.
Well, the first was a public meeting. This is actually a completely different session of the board. There's always the possibility that someone could have left, but by calling the roll, you show that no one left and everyone was still present. You could probably accomplish the same thing by noting that in, saying it and blah, 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 but quite frankly, the way everybody always does it is just recall the roll after the public meeting.
All right, respond with here. Lucas Peters.
Here.
Kelly Cookson.
Here?
Cole Painter. Here. John Ortworth here.
Thank you.
Thank you. Can I get a motion to approve the consent agenda with the dates listed on our agenda?
So moved.
And a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any comments from the audience?
Mike signed up. Mike signed up.
Yeah.
All right, Darren, if you could provide us with,
I will. I'm going to go fairly close, fairly short. Hopefully, here we go. What I have provided for you is a current rate study of our electric rates versus those around us. It's our current rate. If you look at where we're at today, we are actually the lowest in the Northeast compared to Missouri Rural, Ameren, Missouri, Rawls County Electric, Palmyra, BPW, Ameren, Illinois, and the Macon Municipal Utilities. We are below Missouri Rural Co-op by 1.8%. The next one is Macon. We're below them by 3.1. 18% Ameren, Missouri, 21% below Palmyra, 38% below Rawls County, and 65% below Ameren, Illinois. Those are our current rates. So while we have the lively discussions of us increasing rates, we are currently the lowest. These others have already had their capacity issues. They continue to have capacity issues. They continue to raise their rates while we don't want to follow in because they're doing it. We're doing it because we need to. The other thing I've put in here is I've shown what it is with the transfer fee versus that which is not. I am not in any way disparaging the city for getting the 5.5%. In fact, they should. I love it. That's what we do. We support our community. Not an issue. But if you consider that a cooperative does not They do not have to pay anything to the communities that they're in. They don't help pay for the roads. They don't help pay for police or fire or anything else. They don't add anything to the general fund. They don't have to do that. And so while we're competing with them and we're still lower than they are, I think we need to make sure we're comparing apples to apples, not apples to oranges. And so I'm hope that we get a little bit of credit for the job that we do. We get beat up enough other things that we're doing great. The second list I have there shows what happens if you approve the 11.2% increase. Straight
Can
across.
back up a minute? So the
Yes.
5% that goes to the city is included in these numbers?
Okay, so if you look at the very top of the chart, right now, if you, and so again, Mr. Ling made a good point in that if you have to look at each usage. There is a fixed fee, we call it a meter charge. Everybody pays that. But if you only use 1 kilowatt, that's going to be different than the person that uses 1,000 or 2,000 or 7,000. So we took an average, and we're looking at a person that uses about 1,200 kilowatts. That's an average little household, probably 3 people, it's okay. With right now, for 1,200 kilowatts, it would cost you $165.43. If we removed that 5.5% that we give to the city, and again, I'm in no way suggesting that, but I am saying if we did that, we'd be $156.81, which would bring us way lower, especially if we were compared to any of those rural. We'd be 7.4% below Missouri rural electric.
Okay.
So I'm simply saying we're doing a darn good job.
What's the transfer fee that goes to the city? What is the city, like, for what?
That's the franchise fee. That is in lieu of a franchise fee. You can't make yourself pay a franchise fee. So 75 years ago, that's what cities started doing, and they call it different things. A lot of places call it a transfer fee. There's been various litigation. The oldest goes back, there was a Missouri Supreme Court from the 1960s, I believe, late 60s, early 70s, where they ruled that it's valid, it's legal. And based on that case, and Hannibal was the people that got sued, based on that Missouri Supreme Court case, a lot of cities now call it a transfer fee and do it the exact same way. There was a newer case in the mid to late 1990s where the city of Herman raised their transfer fee to, I believe, 8%. So there was another lawsuit. So that suit came out and said 8% is valid, et cetera, et cetera. So actually we're a lower transfer fee if you look at other locations in the state.
But the city determines the fee?
It is actually determined by the charter. The charter sets it at 5.5%. The city has on occasion, in order to try to help out the board on once or twice, and also the ratepayers, has lowered it. But at this point in time, with everybody tight, it's at the maximum 5.5%. So yeah, and it is set by charter. It could be changed, but it would require a vote of the people to do that.
And again, I know,
I was just curious.
Yeah,
What's
no.
the money, like, and Mayor, maybe you help, that money that comes in the city, does it go to a specific fund or just a general fund? Okay.
And to note, Lucas, too, like Darren kind of alluded to, like rural electric doesn't have those associated costs to provide power out in the county. But let's say for some reason that this organization didn't exist and we went to Ameren for all of our needs here, they would pay. Or
That's what they would pay the franchise
if
fee.
rural electric took over the utilities in the city of Hannibal, they would then have to pay that fee to the city.
Yep. No, don't begrudge at all. Now, next on the line is, what if you adopt the 11.2% increase? This is the actual numbers. For BPW, we would be at $184.34 for that new rate, for the 1,200 kWh for that month. That then puts us 8.7% above that Missouri Rural Electric. It puts us 7.4% above the Macon municipal utilities. But if we take and, again, discount the transfer, the payment in lieu of taxes, we're 3.6% above Missouri rural, 2.3 above the Macon municipal, and we're below the others. We still remain quite a bit below the others. So I simply share that to say that we're exceptionally frugal. We're doing a great job of providing power at a very reasonable price when we look at everybody else around us. The difference between our existing rates and that 11.2 is $18.91 per month. Now, if we look at the water, I'm going to go very fast. You can look at it yourself. The rate to add at 3%, the additional cost goes from $55.45 to $57.01, which is approximately $1.56. So, and I'll check the math. Paul can correct that from $1.49 to $1.56, something to that extent. I'm off by 7 cents. So Paul's the numbers guy. That's what I have. Please note, we still have we're not the lowest water. We're lower than some. We're lower than Rawls County and Palmyra, but higher than Cannon and Berry. Again, we contribute, but we also have a granulated activated carbon filter, which works very well for us, and it costs us about $456,000 a year for the change out of that media. And I will go to the reliability. Love to have that discussion with you. If you look at what we have done also, we have improved our average service availability index. It's up to above 99.995. If you look at the amount of time that a customer is out when they are interrupted, that stays around the 50-minute mark. I am not going to kick and scream about that number and try to reduce it because we have linemen that are going out. They have to be safe, and I want them concentrating on being safe, getting it back in line. And if they'll stay in that band of about 50 minutes, that's with a 30-minute have to arrive within, and then the repair, that I think we need to, I'm going to leave that one alone. I'm not going to harp on that one. The next two numbers, I believe, are exceptional. If you look at what our red line is, the average outage minutes per customer, you can see that back in 2023, we were up around 70 minutes, and we're now below 30, almost to 20 minutes is the average interruption per customer. So we're taking and shortening those interruptions. We're having few of them. Finally, we look at it's called the SAFE, the average interruption per customer per year. Again, you go back to 23, we had almost 1.4, almost 1.5. We're now down below 0.5. So we've done some things. Keep scrolling down. I've got you some pictures. One is of the tree trimming that we do. We have gone from 3 crews down to 2. That was one of our money-saving efforts. They've been in and doing this work for 5 years, so they've touched every bit of our system and been able to cut it back pretty significantly. Now with 2 crews, we believe we can keep up and at least maintain that which they've already gone back and aggressively trimmed. We're going to have to wait and see. And then finally, we've been aggressively going after squirrels. We have put up squirrel guards. The one on the right, you have to actually take an outage. You shut that off. We don't want our guys going up and doing that work hot. But that has helped. If you'll look, we'll show you some of the outages reports that Matt might go through. The number of squirrel incidents are down. The evil squirrel in my mind. Don't hold that against me. So, but our guys, our leaders, from Matt to Jared to our linemen, they've done a great job, and our reliability is exceptional. So our rates are low, exceptionally low. Our efforts are exceptional, and our reliability is fantastic. And if some company wants to live inside of an exceptionally good service area for a fantastic utility, this is the place. That's all I have.
Anybody have any questions of Daryl's report?
I just, I don't
Darren's
know,
report, damn it.
Thank you.
Lucas, if you
I do
know
that
that
also.
we did skip the
Both ways.
3% rate increase on the water last year.
Oh, yeah, okay.
Okay. Is that right?
I'm sorry, I didn't,
We skipped the 3% rate increase last year on the water.
that is correct.
All right. No more questions? Move right along to Matt Munslinger, please.
With the operations report, you can see the number Darren alluded to. Our overall availability is the 99.996. Again, as I reported last month, that's the first time that I've known that we've had that in at least the last 5 or 6 years that I've been involved in reporting this to you all. We did have 6 outages last month. Most of them were animal related. So again, even though we can put the protections in, like Darren showed in his pictures, it doesn't stop everything. We only had the one tree incident, and that was in the heavily wooded area that we tried to trim back. But when we have the hot, wet summer like we did earlier this year, if you look at the trees and, as you know, trying to keep up with your grass mowing, that stuff likes to grow in hot, wet climate. So we've noticed some extensive growth this year, and we're working with our tree company to help make sure that we do address the immediate areas that need to be addressed going into the winter months. Other things I'd like to highlight: if you look at the water system or water treatment report, we are producing more than we did in 2024. Hopefully that calculates all over into sales as well. Next GAC exchange will occur in Q4. We don't have that exact date scheduled yet. And the big purchase was we replaced some turbidimeters and chlorine analyzers that we have to have on all of our filters. The old ones haven't been replaced in the 18 years that I've been here. And the new ones came out. They were able to offer us a substantial discount, and those would be installed by our own crews. They actually require less expense when we go to calibrate them on a quarterly basis, because they don't require a certain agent to calibrate them. And so that was at a cost of about $50,000. Water distribution crew continued main installation. Last spring we started on, or I think it was last fall, we started by replacing an old undersized line on Iowa, and part of that was obtaining an easement from the housing authority and making that a loop main, so that should we have a failure of a main, we didn't have people. We limited the amount of people we had out of service, and we got that easement in late last month or early last month, and so the crew was able to go out there and finish that by installing roughly 350 feet of 6-inch main. We did have 2 sewer force main breaks. A sewer force main is similar to a water main. You have a pump that pressurizes sewer and pumps it up to a higher elevation, where it is then turned loose into the gravity portion of the system. And so you're only discharging when that pump is running, and so they're hard to find sometimes, but both of these occurred on lift station force mains out in 168 area, one off the Clear Creek lift station, and then one off the 168 lift station. Computer or technology wise, we're continuing to preparing to make the transition to NISC's new iView Connect platform. That's something that we hope to go later this year. And then you can read about the business office statistics at the end of the report.
Anybody have any questions of Matt's report?
Can I ask a quick question?
Please.
How's the 4A?
Last check, we got about 700 gallons, and we're looking to be sometime mid-November is what they're telling me right now. Yep.
Okay. Thank you very much. Looks like on to projects, please.
Water loss, that's something we're continuing to address. As I've told you before, we've purchased a meter ourselves and have been working in the Surrey Hills, Fair Oaks, West Ely area of town. A couple months ago, right before a board meeting, they repaired a water main that was broke right there by the bridge on West Ely that wasn't making it to the surface. Last week up in Fair Oaks, they dug up where they thought they had a leak. They found a dry hole. They did some additional listening and found it on a different line, and it was estimated about 4 gallon a minute is what we're losing, and that was out of an old cast iron pipe. Our lining project on our sewer side of things, the larger than 15-inch diameter lining project in the downtown area, we've got all that paperwork turned back into the contractor, and we're just waiting to get into their schedule. Sometime this fall, they'd come in and do a lining of all the large diameter mains.
Is that up the avenue? Is that what that is?
No, this is down along Bear Creek between the lift station there on Ely Street and the flood wall.
Gotcha.
Back around across under Bear Creek.
Gotcha.
As part of that, we're also working with the city to do the lining of the stormwater pump station discharges. There's 3 pumps located there. Each pump has its own discharge pipe, steel pipe, and I think it was back in a couple years ago, we ran one of them, and it surfaced, and we dug it up and found that the metal had corroded, allowing a pinhole to develop. And with this lining, they're able to come in without disturbing the levee, and it'll provide a better product that has a 50 to 100 year life. So it'll use the metal pipe as the hose pipe. We'll inject that a new liner in there, inflate it with water, and allow it to cure. And then it's just like a brand new piece of PVC, and you don't have to do any digging.
Do those go over the levee?
They're just barely under the top layer of the levee. They discharge. There's a box structure there in the top, and all 3 of them discharge there, and then they gravity flow out to Bear Creek. North Street Storm Sewer Phase 1, we're trying to get completed. They poured some sidewalk the other day. They're trying to get with their contractor to get in here and do some final grading, work with the Parks Department on that, and then they'll get the final seeding and strawing done. Phase 2 scheduled to start sometime after January 1, and in Phase 3 we're waiting on Corps of Engineers looking for some additional funding to finish out the project, and we'll have an meeting on that portion of the project sometime later this year, once it's to make the determination to go forward with just the funding we have, or if there is additional funding available. Bear Creek Dam Spillway, that's the ARPA funding to remove dirt from the spillway located out off Highway HH. Contractor's been in there since about the first part of August. They're probably 50, 60, maybe 70% complete. I haven't been out there yet this week, and they're hoping to get that wrapped up by the end of the month, provided the weather holds. I mean, this dry weather has been good for some dirt moving, and so they're wanting to get in there and get it done. So, and then the last project we want to talk about is the Indian Mound Substation. The new construction is all complete with the exception of some tie-overs. We've got a company that we've hired to do the commissioning, make sure that where they landed wire on point A meets where they landed the wire on point B, and everything talks like it's supposed to, and all those connections are made correctly. There was a equipment or a breaker was broken in early August, September, something like, or July or August, and they had to get that part. Well, we were scheduled to have this commissioning company in here about the second week of August, because the contractor was unable to get that replacement part. We had to delay that commissioning company, and it only got installed in the last week or so. And so the earliest we're able to get on that commissioning company schedule is the week of October 6th. So they'll be in here that week. Hopefully everything's constructed exactly as planned, and then we'll be able to get that tested out. Then the construction company will come back in, make the final connections, and then we'll make a substation go live, hopefully by the end of October.
On that substation, Saturday morning, about 5 o'clock, we had an outage, and it was at the actual substation itself. Indian Mounds. It caused the problem, and we don't know exactly what happens if we had our new transformer, if it was cooked up. They would tell us what was going on. It was a voltage inequity that kicked it out. All I'm saying is having this done in time after 70 years of life, it's a really good thing that we're doing it, and it's perfect timing.
The substation that failed on Saturday is one that was constructed in the 70s. It has had some equipment updates over the years, but the new stuff is able to tell you, record all that information that previously you didn't want to know. And so we think it was just a voltage imbalance. Sometimes the suppliers will crank up the voltage in anticipation of a hot day that drags down the voltage. That's all I've got, unless y'all have any questions.
I have a question about the water loss. How common is it that we have?
It's not common that we have it that high. Industry standard, they like to keep it between 10 and 15%. We've embarked on this journey really substantially a couple years ago. We had a company come in and listen on every valve, and they use a listening device that records sound overnight when water consumption is low. And so the theory behind that is if water consumption is low and they hear a lot of water moving through the pipe, you have a leak in that general vicinity. That company did yield, I think, 30 to 35 leaks that they had found. Some of them were 15 gallon a minute. We dug up one. The guys called back and said, hey, the company was still in town. They said, hey, can they come look at this hole? It was a dry hole. But as soon as they scraped that pipe, the water sprayed at that point. And so we were very confident in what they were able to find. We do that on some level on an annual basis, but it's only as good as the information that day, because we could listen to it and tomorrow some act of nature or whatever, it would spring a leak. And so we're utilizing a contractor to help us in developing a model on where water should be flowing in our system. And then we're also using this portable meter that we have purchased to verify what our end user meters are telling us. So if it's saying we're using 100 gallon a minute in this area or in this subdivision, and our meter says that we're using 150, we need to be doing some listening. So what they'll do is they'll use some listening devices, and then they'll also turn off different areas to see, okay, we turn this off, did this meter change? Or when we turn this back on, do we have a big rush of water going in this area, to help try to locate where those losses are occurring.
So if you could project, which I know is asking a lot, if you had that magic ball, how long do you think it will take to remedy this problem?
You'll never remedy it. You'll only chase it. I mean,
There will always be another
the
one.
hope is to bring it down to where it's in that 10 to 15% range, but you're always going to be chasing it because the freeze and thaw, the drought moves the ground. Contractors, boring contractors, sometimes they may hit a pipe and not report it, or they didn't even know that they caused damage. And so you're always going to be chasing it. It's not a fix it all today and walk away. It's a continual process.
Plus the age.
Plus the aging of everything. I mean, thank you.
All right. Thank you very much. And Paul, up next with the financial report, please.
All right, bear with me. We're almost there. So, financial report for August 2025, starting with the balance sheet. We did have total cash up slightly, or up from the previous month, but it's down $7.7 million from a year ago. We did have the higher revenue, like we talked about in July and August, causing the recent uptick. But the overall decrease, like we've talked about, is due to higher purchase power in the ongoing Indian Mountains project. Did have a significant decrease in current assets. We marked some outstanding Prairie State receivables as paid, and then also had a decrease in payables, which is primarily due to timing in the electric fund, and then we also had the debt service payment in the sewer fund in AP last month. Looking at the income statement, the electric fund did have a positive month financially. We did have higher revenues come in for August, just like July, than what we had budgeted, and we also had lower purchase power costs. However, we could be expecting additional cost for the month of August. What we had happen was we have Ameren, who owns a Finn substation. They communicate to us how much electricity we used out of that Finn substation, and that communication for a portion of the month was lost. It was severed. I'm not exactly sure what happened, but when that happens, the load that we report to MISO is also underreported. We were able to remedy that issue and get it back working properly. However, there was a week and a half, 2 weeks or so where that load was underreported to MISO. When that happens, we submit a day-ahead bid that is much higher than what it shows as a real-time bid. So we pay for less load than what we actually used. It's fairly common for this to happen, and what MISO does is they true that up later on once that load gets properly submitted. And so we will see that as what's called an S55 true-up on a future MISO invoice. I did build in an estimate for what I estimated that load would have been, but there's obviously a chance that that load was higher than what I estimated. So I do have a caveat there with a possibility of additional purchase power.
Do you know when that was, what the dates were?
Yeah, it was right in the middle of the month, if I recall, in August. I want to say the 14th, somewhere in there. And then we got it re-operating around the 24th, 25th, I think, 25th.
That was before it got hot again.
Yeah, that was actually, I think, a couple of those days where it got real cool. So yeah, to your point, probably a little bit of a relief there with that. And definitely huge kudos to Matthew for all the work that he did with that. A lot of early mornings for him, making sure that data was getting submitted properly because it's generated to us at 4 a.m. So once we finally found out from our consultants that was going on, Matthew got it fixed and then verified every morning at 4 that it was being properly submitted at that point. So thank you to him for that. Water and sewer also had positive months in August. Both funds there did have lower revenues, but they also had lower operating expenses. We did not have a carbon changeout expense in August, and so that helped the water fund outperform its budgeted net income by $69,000. If we look back a year ago, the electric fund did perform just about the same. Revenues were actually 12% higher this year, but at purchase power costs were 25% higher. Kilowatt hours sold were about 1.6% higher than they were a year ago. The water fund did perform better than it did a year ago. Gallons sold were up about 7.5%, and then sewer was about consistent. Gallons sold for sewer was about 0.4% less than the previous year. So we're now 2 months into our fiscal year. With the positive months in both July and August, the electric fund is performing better than budget, and that is primarily due to the higher revenues than we expected and lower operating expenses so far. Again, that does come with obviously the caveat that we just discussed. Also, you'll notice that depreciation in the electric fund is lower than we had budgeted back in February. We had anticipated the Indian Mound substation project coming online a little bit sooner than what we're looking at currently, and so we haven't capitalized that asset, and so we're not recognizing quite as much depreciation as we will once we do end up capitalizing that substation. The water fund is slightly behind budget, and that is primarily due to chemical costs. We don't buy those chemicals every month, and so there's no way to evenly budget for them. We buy them maybe 4, 5, 6 times a year, and so obviously you're going to have months where you do buy those chemicals that result in higher expenses for that month. And then sewer is also a bit behind the budget as well. So comparing our year-to-date results to last year, net income utility-wide is about $192,000 more than it was last year at this time. Looking at the numbers, revenues are about 10% more than they were a year ago. Net purchase power is about $760,000 more, and operating expenses are about 5% less. We've got all of our other information on there for you to look at: check register, credit card statement. I will take a quick look at the debt coverage ratio just because we did talk about this a bit. You'll notice a little bit different. What I'm attempting to do there is attempt to calculate the debt coverage ratio if the month, or if the fiscal year were to end as of the most recent month reported. And so that's that first calculation. The second calculation of debt service coverage ratio is the last 12 months of revenues and expense. In some ways, that gives a more accurate representation because it looks at a 12-month revenue and expense period. But like I've said before, that debt coverage ratio is calculated by our auditors once a year. And so it is our auditors that determine whether or not we are in compliance at June 30th every year. I do my best to calculate that to keep you apprised of what that coverage ratio is likely to be. However, it is that ultimate final calculation at the end of June that determines that. And so, yes, with the positive results in electric, we are at an 8.84 if we just look at July and August. If we look at a rolling 12 months of revenues and expenses, the electric fund is at a negative 2.95. But again, it all comes down to June 30th on where that coverage calculation sits. We did, speaking of auditors, we did have our auditors here earlier this month. That went extremely well. Wanted to say thank you to everyone that helped with that. We were able to get them out of here with just about everything they needed. We have maybe one or two outstanding items for them to finish up. And then again, they'll present the draft of that audit to you, the board, in November. Any questions on the financial report?
I don't think we do.
Mr. President, before you all move on to voting on the schedule of rates, could I be allowed to move my comments up?
Why not?
Okay, thank you. So, be honest, I've been sitting here debating whether I should do this or not, but I wanted to give you some legal opinion on the public meeting and some things that were raised, some opinions that were voiced, and one thing, a fairly large concern I had. To Darren's point, I absolutely agree with him. His job is to run the utility and to run it efficiently, and I think it is perfectly appropriate for him to ask for an 11% rate increase if that's what he thinks. I hate to admit this, but Mr. Ling had another good point, though, which was that staff should not always make your decisions for you, and that ultimately the public is going to be looking at you all to be the ones that make the decisions. The mayor made a point that I didn't hear rebutted that sounds as if it does not require an 11% increase in order to both cover the bond requirements, but also to do some type of increase in your rates. I think
You mean
I would.
reserves?
Pardon me.
You mean reserves?
Reserves.
Yeah.
I would suggest that you probably have something of a fiduciary obligation to consider that. And I also, though, am very concerned with the fact that the mayor said this, that if you did not consider that, he would feel obliged to take other action. Because of the fact that I know the only action that the council has, because they have no direct control over you, as we all know. You're an independent board and you can do what you think is right. But my concern is their only recourse is to remove the board or remove board members. I don't say this to threaten you or inject something in or suggest that the mayor was threatening, but as your attorney or as the city attorney, I think it's something that I have to point out that's the, if you will, threat that I'm hearing. I'm certainly not trying to tell you all what to do, because I don't think that would be appropriate for me to tell you what to do. But I do think it's my job to try to avoid conflicts between the council and the board if I can. I'm hearing the board members say that they're very concerned about the rate increase. I'm hearing the mayor suggest that perhaps you should consider a lower rate increase. And I'm wondering whether it's something that you all ought to consider and ought to take a look at what type of a lower rate increase could you have? Because what I heard the mayor say was that he supported the rate increase and that he recognized that you needed to address your reserves. So again, I want to be very clear. I'm not trying to tell you all what to do. And I'm not trying to suggest that do this or you will be removed, but I heard things in the public meeting that concerned me, and I really wanted to address it with you, and I appreciate you letting me move my comments up.
Okay, thank you. Moving on, Paul, if we get into rates and fees, I think we've talked about it quite a lot. Anything new?
The only thing I will say, I feel that it is, we talked about solvency, we talked about the good standing of the utility, and I do feel it is my place as the Director of Finances of this utility to point out that we do know that we did receive a downgrade in our rating, and we do know that a large reason for that downgrade was that that we did not adopt the rate increase that was presented by management that was outlined by that policy. So it obviously means that anything outside of what we're recommending comes with that risk that we would open ourselves up to another potential downgrade. We do know that S&P is going to reassess us after a year's time, and that if they were to so downgrade us further, it does open us up to that risk that we would receive a much higher interest rate on any future debt and things of that nature. So I just wanted to make that point.
Paul, could I ask a question?
Yep.
I read that last downgrade, and one of the things they downgraded you all for was public displeasure regarding increase in the rates. How do you think how does that play into your advice?
Sure. So, yeah, and I think they mentioned specifically affordability of the region and things of that nature. And so there's definitely a balance there. Like I said, my position as the finance director is to follow that policy. It is your decision balancing what I am telling you as the finance director, what Darren is telling you, and balancing that with the ratepayer. And so, yeah, it's not an easy decision, but yeah, you're absolutely right that it wasn't. A very large factor in that was the fact that affordability in this region is low. Median household income is low compared to the national average, things of that nature as well. So, yeah, certainly two sides of that coin.
So, sorry, Lucas. So, if we looked at it like Councilman Haycraft said, and we looked at it at a 6-month instead of a year, and we did a portion of that increase, what would that do? I mean, do you have any kind of idea of what that would do to our rating or?
No, I mean, I can't speak for the rating agency, obviously.
Right.
But again, I think they would look at what is your most common practice. If we look back at what your most common practice has been, it's been annual rate increases. All of this discussion that we've had tonight would be very easily solved by something called a PCA, a purchase power cost adjustment. And the beauty with that is when you have an increase in your purchase power cost, something completely outside of our control, you're able to pass that on immediately to the customer in a rolling 12-month average. We, unfortunately, don't have that ability. And so because of that, we are faced with this more of a need, I guess, to do these higher rate increases when we're faced with more of this drastic increase in our purchase power. So
Why do we not have that ability? Obviously.
Yeah. The charter doesn't allow it, and I think the main reason is because of the need for a rate hearing. Obviously, if we had a winter storm Uri and costs went up $1 million in a week, and we turned right around and had to have a rate hearing to recover that cost every month, it likely wouldn't go very well. And so the PCA gives you that ability without having to do any type of rate hearing. It's an
So that would
in and out.
you'd have to make changes to the charter
To-
to enact something.
And there'd be maybe some concerns with state law too, because we're a municipal, for-profits are governed by the PSC, and they've got completely different rules. we could probably look at making some changes in the charter, but the issue, I mean, the underlying issue is the charter was passed in like the 60s. You look at the way the world is now, and you look at how it's billed, and you look at things like capacity and costs, and none of those things existed. So it made more sense
It's much
to
more
do.
reliable, or steady, I guess.
It was steady. You went out, you bought the power at whatever you negotiated, you kept your poles in place. It was easy to handle. Just in the last 20 years, the electrical world has changed. But if you're talking back into the 1960s, you're going back 80 years. So, well, 65. Yeah, I can't add. That's why I went to law school and
born in the
dropped out of
70s.
engineering. But the point is, they're doing the best they can with the boundaries they've got. To the concept of 6 months, there's nothing that stops you from doing multiple rate hearings during the year. But the type of thing that Paul's talking about is, we'd have to just do constant rate hearings, and it just wouldn't work based on the way the charter's set up, and probably some problems with state law. But breaking it up into multiple reviews is something you could do if that, and in particular, if that's something that the council's supporting and pushing for, and helps you sell the idea, maybe that's something to consider. It wouldn't get you necessarily to the point where Paul talks about, but it might help, I suppose.
Could they consider that a positive? Because you said that the norm is that we do annuals. But if we were to do it biannually or quarterly, could that not be looked at as a positive from the people that are reviewing us, going, hey, they're trying to be proactive and not only taking care of the community by not just throwing a big one there, they're actually going this long, then evaluating where they're at and making the changes necessary.
Sure, yeah, and I see your point in that. I think what they're going to, what it's more going to come down to is that the policy that you've put in place as a board says that we need to add 5% of last year's revenue. And so whether you make that up all at once, whether you make it up quarterly, it's still the same amount in total. So I guess if we did the lower increase now and you looked at it next quarter, well, if we're still humming right along at the same path, that rate increase is going to be even higher.
Unless you change the policy.
Unless you change the policy,
Three of you.
which,
So to put some historical perspective on it, this board didn't used to have any kind of a reserve policy. They put that reserve policy, that was Dr. Harder pushed for that. So however many years ago it's been that Dr. Harder was board chair, because how long?
That's what it says on here is when it was adopted.
2011, I would say it. I was here. I was the attorney, and prior to that, there was no reserve policy. So my point is, it's not something that's set in stone that's been in place for 50 years. You all can adjust that, and it has been adjusted a few times, I believe. So it is something that you all could lower down if that's something that's appropriate right now. I'm not saying you should do it. I'm just saying it is within your power to do so.
How long have we been in violation of the policy?
of the cash reserve policy, since the end of last fiscal year. So so June 30th, 2024, we dropped below that minimum when we were at about $11 million in reserves. And I think at a bare minimum, it would definitely do us justice to have some education on that policy, why we have the numbers that we do, the industry standard recommendations that were made to us that are very similar across the board. I think that would be a great asset to you all to have that.
And maybe you just answered this question. So everything's based on a fiscal year. So within this fiscal year, if we have 2 rate increases, like say we have one now, and then we decide we need one later, we can still meet the bond coverage, right? Because it's based on a yearly number, not like in 3 months, we're not where we're supposed to be. Is that correct? Am I hearing that right, or you understand? 'Cause-
Yeah, I think,
so if we did it quarterly, at the end, we would still be okay. We would still meet our bond coverage ratio.
yeah, and I think if you'll recall, well, I guess the budget included the rate increase. I can't remember exactly, I don't want to misspeak on what the projection of the bond ratio was without a rate increase, and my computer's dead.
Right, I remember that.
But yes, it is something that we are pretty confident that we were going to meet next year. Again, the reduction in reserve, the $7.6 million of added costs that we have not made up is the primary increase or reason for the adjustment. Yep.
Oh, go ahead.
I just wondered, how do we measure the community support for that? Because if that had an impact, everything has to be measurable. What do we do? Do we just say people are happier, or what do we have to do to make that happen?
I think the answer to your question is that bond rating companies are going to determine things based on what they see and what their opinions are regardless. It probably doesn't matter what we do, although to the point of making the people happy, you know, I've been doing this for a long time. I've been in this for a long time, and I come from a political family. Here's what I will tell you. Is it going to make people happier if you say we considered an 11%, but we went in and we did 5 or 6% instead because we looked at it and we analyzed and blah, blah, blah? Yeah, that's going to be more likely to make people happy.
Okay, I just wanted to clarify, because earlier you had said that the bond rating was impacted by public displeasure, and you had said that it was by affordability. So is it that it's impacted by both, or that?
I said displeasure over the increases. And I'm fine with his interpretation too. I read the report. I read it to be that there was strong opposition, but I don't have it sitting here in front of me, and I don't have a problem with Paul's interpretation that it was the lack of affordability. Either way, it goes to, can the people afford that increase? And if you raise it in order to take care of their issues they have with your reserves, but you further affect your affordability, is that going to positively affect your bond rating? That's my point and my concern.
Yeah, I guess I was just asking because when I think of affordability, I think of a unit that can be measured, and when I think of people's displeasure or approval, that gets into a little bit more.
And again, I don't have it in front of me. My recollection was it said something like opposition or something. I'd have to go back and reread it because that was a year ago, and I'm old.
So I guess with that, so we approve the rate, the town goes crazy. Has it helped anything? If that's measured in our bond rating?
The bond rating is, I don't want to mislead. I don't want to attack what Paul was saying or mislead anybody, because the bond rating, is composed of a lot of different factors that they're analyzing. And I am certainly not an expert on that bond rating, et cetera, et cetera. I looked at that report, I read it, and I came away after reading it with the belief that it certainly was not solely the issues with our failure to meet the bond covenants, nor was it solely to deal with reserves. It was a multitude of factors that they looked at when they made the decision to drop our rating. I'm not positive as we sit here that there's a single thing that we can do to prevent that bond rating from going down. I think that's an important factor, and I think that this board probably needs to take all of that into consideration. That is a part of their fiduciary duty. I'm just suggesting to them that it's not, their duty is not necessarily to give, with all due respect, to give staff exactly what they ask for every time. It is staff's job to ask for what they think best without regard to some of the other political factors, et cetera, et cetera. It's my suggestion that maybe it's the board's duty to then go, well, we hear what you guys are saying, and we know you want 11, but maybe we'll give you 7, or maybe we'll give you 6. But I'm not trying to tell them what to do. I'm just trying to give some insight and some input.
So with that, if we do the 11%, can the rate still go down because of the displeasure?
I think if,
If they're checking Facebook comments.
But I mean, if that's a factor, can it still put us down where we have a higher interest because of the displeasure?
the risk is always there. However, if you meet your debt coverage ratio, you were able to produce revenues that were sufficient to meet your debt service, essentially what that is. You were able to abide by your policy that was set in place by replenishing your reserve by the amount that you said you were going to. It seems pretty, it seems pretty unlikely that they would continue to downgrade us at that point.
If you lower the interest rate, say 7%, you change the policy and the customers are happy, I feel like all three of those are wins that could make it where it is a better rate than pissing everybody off by doing the 11%.
So are you saying if we did a 7% rate increase?
And then the policy gets changed to 8 million instead of 13 million. So that it's approved that way, so then that's better. And then the customers are also happy, so all three of those are closer.
So let me, can I just jump in here, and I'm gonna muddy the water just for a second. First of all, I have a reserve policy, and the mayor's mentioned that, and it is my duty, it is in that policy that says that if when our reserve falls below the minimum, I have to make sure that I recommend, still up to the board, that we do something so that we get an equal to 5% of the gross revenues increase for that coming year. So we've got to do that. I'm going to do that. It also says that I have to inform the board if we ever have a down rating. I also have to do those things that will help and mitigate that. And that's part of my duties as the general manager. If they vote whatever they say to do, we will do. And so that's where, Paul, the amount, percentages, I mean, if you guys want to go through this rate hearing every 3 months, that's not exciting to me, but we will do what the board direct us to do.
But there's two different things at play, right? The bond rating and the reserve that the board has set are exclusive, correct? Or does that have play in the bond rating also?
I'm sorry, thank you for bringing that up. We had talked about, we'd asked our bond counsel whether if we simply take and say, all right, we're going to get rid of the reserve fund requirement, we're going to just change it so that we're going to meet it. They said that that's kind of avoiding the problem and would also be frowned upon. Now, would they put it in writing? I asked them if they would put it in writing. No, you have to hire us to do that. I will simply tell you that's my opinion that would happen. I have to share that with you. And the mayor, you can say that that's not correct, and that's okay.
I'm just saying that you're right. It is not in writing anywhere. We asked the council, asked them for that.
Yes,
You
and
could not produce that.
we could do it for $12,000, but we felt it wasn't worth that.
I
So,
agree with you on that.
and so I'm going to leave that as it is. I'm simply going to tell you that it's my opinion that to do that would be not wise.
So you're saying that they're not really exclusive, that would have some play in if we weren't meeting our own covenant.
I think
could
they
have-
look at that,
could
yes.
have a role in the bond. And I'm not even suggesting we get rid of the covenant, other than maybe provide a grace period to get to that reserve? Where it doesn't necessarily have to be met by the end of this fiscal year.
The 5% is probably slightly on the low side of the industry, but there's nothing that says it has to be 5%. And that was the point I was trying to make with the fact that it didn't even exist before 2011.
Right.
They had reserves. They tried to keep reserves, but they didn't have any specific hit point, and they had a decent bond rating back then. Now, you try to change it now, to Darren's point, I would somewhat agree with bond counsel. And I understand, I'm not a bond attorney, but I would somewhat agree with bond counsel that has the potential for them looking at it of they're just playing games and they're just trying to weasel around it. However, I would suggest to you that, yeah, they want to get paid for it, but also they don't want to put it in writing because they wouldn't want to be held to that opinion either, because I'm not certain that that's accurate 100%. I think, as with everything, I would suggest to you that there is middle ground, and there is such a thing as you can adjust your policy. You could set your goal at 2.5% or 3%. Figure out what you would have to do with a rate increase to work towards that, et cetera, et cetera. And if you get yourself on a more financially stable footing, take a look at trying then to later increase it to 5, or even better, increase it to 7 or 10%.
But do we have to change the covenant, or can we allow ourselves more time to get to the 5%?
It's your policy. You all created it. You all amended it. You all can change the policy at any time with a single vote here in one of your meetings. All you all have to do is decide how you want to change it, and you can amend the policy, because it's your policy.
The bond covenant only requires that you are in compliance with your policy. It doesn't specify what that policy says, to James' point.
Well, the bond
That's what
covenant,
I was gonna
we have to
ask.
get to the 1.25, there's no way of hands or buts about that,
Right.
right?
The cash
Right.
reserve-
But the cash reserve, I'm not even in disagreement that we don't need that reserve, because we've spelled out a million different reasons of why. I guess what I'm saying is, if we don't go with the full 11% right away, we kind of do, maybe in 6 months we meet again, we talk about it, we have another one of these. It doesn't get us there.
It's
It
not
doesn't
gonna
get
get
us
any
there
easier.
by the end of the year, but maybe in 2 years we're able to review. Does that make sense what I'm trying to say?
With the proposed rate increase, we're only, as I said earlier, we're only adding $1.4 million.
So we're not gonna get to the reserve.
$13 million roughly is what our reserve policy states that we have to achieve. And
So we're not getting there anyway.
No.
Gotcha.
Okay, wait a second. We're not getting there with the rate increase, the 11.2?
Not in the year, no.
Correct.
We'll only be on
It's 5 years.
Yeah, that's right, because we're at the end of the year, we're gonna be 4 point, okay,
Yeah, we're gonna be under it anyway.
yeah.
But I mean, it just seems like we're chasing our tail if we change the bond policy just to fix it, you know? It almost seems illegal to me.
But we're not gonna get there anyway, so at the end of the year, we're still not gonna meet
But we're on
the.
our way.
There are other things that you can work on in order to help you control your cost. And working on methods to control your cost, and whether that's by having your own generators, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, that there are various things that you can do. And there are things that are possibly working in the works that might help you address those issues, because if you can control your purchase power cost better than with your increased rate, you're going to be able to build your reserves quicker. It's not one factor necessarily that's going to affect it. And I'm not trying to tell you guys what to do, and you guys have to do whatever you think is appropriate, because you all are in charge. You're an independent board. But in my position as city attorney, and I see the conflict going on between the council and the board, that's the only reason I've asked to speak up, was I just wanted to point out that conflict and give you my thoughts on some of these other fiduciary obligations and some of the other factors. So
5% of what you brought in last year of the electric fund,
Gross revenues.
of just the electric fund, right?
Yep.
So is your calculation on this 11.2%, is that 1.7 million, 1.8 million that Matt mentioned that we're gonna see, is that 5% of the revenues from last year?
Yes. Yeah. 1.4 million.
So while we're not gonna get to that 13 million number I saw some people throw around here, like, you're gonna be in compliance, because it doesn't say your cash reserve policy has to be 13 million, or 15 million, or 6 million. It just says you have to bring in 5%. You have to put back 5% of what you generated last year. So you could, in good faith, in my opinion, change that to 2%, or structured like Lucas said, like, okay, we're gonna change our policy to do this. I mean, what's the bond council gonna say? Who knows? Nobody knows. But you're trying to make it affordable to the ratepayers. You're trying to do your best to get back to where you need to be. Like, you've already defaulted 2 or 3 years. The bond rating's already shot, like.
It's not shot.
It's
It's
not
still,
shot.
it's
No,
still a
but
pretty
it's
good
been
bond
decreased.
rating.
It's been decreased.
You,
You're
you
right.
don't want it
Yeah,
to
don't
decrease
put me
more
on
if you can
that.
avoid it. That's not a horrible bond rating by any means. It's just not as good as it was.
How do we compare to other?
I don't know the answer to that. I just know that that's not a horrible bond rating.
That's what I'm saying. It's just trying to make an effort to do, I mean.
Yeah, Bob.
Current bonds that we have out now that were based on that reserves policy would have to be reviewed or analyzed again. Basically, that previous bond said that this is our reserve policy, this is what we have in reserve, this is how we're going to fund reserves, so they gave us lending based on that. That if we do change that, does that change the lending agreement?
I don't think it would change the lending agreement. We do get rated in each of our funds periodically, and so fortunately the water and sewer funds have met those requirements, and so they haven't been under near as much scrutiny. But yes, it would have to be factored if they were to come back at a future date and rate it or redo that rating.
Well, can I ask one dumb question? And I know you don't have the exact answer, and that'll bug you to death. But let's say we adjust the rates to X percent in order to simply comply with that leasehold agreement of having a debt ratio of 1.25 and put 0 into the reserves. What would you estimate the increase would be required to just meet that bond covenant?
For this upcoming fiscal year?
Yep.
I don't think we'd need any rate increase. But I would ask you if, in, you know, the answer to this, because you
Well,
said it.
I'm confused because
Yep.
after one full calendar year, the 11.2 will add 1,600,000 to the reserves?
1.4 million.
1.4. So that 1.4 million, is that, I'm trying to figure out when we increase, right now, we're not bringing in enough to cover costs.
Right now, we are.
We are.
We are, yes.
Is that just based on this
Right.
next coming year's
That's just
head?
based on this upcoming fiscal year. The volatility that we've seen, we don't know 2 fiscal years, 3 fiscal years, what we're going to face. And so that's where these reserves come into play to cover future unanticipated costs, things of that nature. But we are calculating that as of this next fiscal year, we will meet that rate covenant. We will produce revenue sufficient to meet our debt service of 1.25.
But does
With
that-
no rate increase.
Correct.
But does that have any thing to cover the spikes that we've seen? Like, you're not anticipating like tomorrow, 140 or some of that, there is some anticipation of the spike.
Right. No, we do our best to average all of that out. That's why we go back 2-3 years to kind of take out some of that fluctuation. You've seen in the reports, though, that energy has been trending up. And so we did build some of that into the budget. We didn't build as much into the budget as we've seen these first 2 months. And so if that trend continues, you're absolutely right. We could be high on the energy side. as well.
The volatility that you guys have seen has been primarily in the capacity. The long-term goal ought to be find ways to control your capacity and find ways to get capacity where you don't have to buy it on the open market.
Which is what
The
the
generation.
generator is supposed to be helping us with.
Exactly. So that's what when I was talking to Cole about trying different strategies, that's one of the things I'm talking about is try to figure out ways to cover your capacity so that you're not subject to as much of the volatility in the market.
That levels the ceiling.
That's not to say that purchase power isn't also volatile, but historically, at least recently, and you guys tell me I'm crazy yet, but my understanding has been the real volatility has been in the capacity market more so than the other portions.
That's correct, right? Because I get confused on capacity and purchase power.
Yeah. Capacity is absolutely the big spike. Everything else is trending up.
Right.
Transmission
And that's the thing, is that if you guys could get to a point where you could control this, then it's gonna be a lot easier for you to long-range budget and figure these things out and not have pitchforks and torches.
And how long would it take for that, generation system to be up and operational if we?
That's
2028.
28.
So,
So that's not even that long,
and again, that's what I'm saying is there's
2
short,
years.
short-range goals, there's medium-range goals, and there's long-range goals. And they know that. I mean, I trust our staff to know it. They're asking for what they know will take care of it. But again, staff doesn't have to have the same considerations to the public that the council does, which is somewhat then also on this board. So that was my point in jumping in and running my mouth, was I just wanted everybody to think about that and to look at both sides of that.
Bob, go ahead, Bob. You've been waiting forever.
What I was gonna say 15 minutes ago, and all this conversation is great. To me, the bond covenant, you gotta meet that. There's no question about that. The rating, I'd be curious to know how everybody else was rating, because I believe you told me at one time in conversation, whether it was one-on-one or whether it was in a meeting, that other people, other utility boards are having the same problem, meeting their reserve, meeting their bond covenant. Everybody's having same trouble with increased rates, and getting the revenue in to pay for it. So I imagine other utility companies are experience the same thing. So I have a feeling that is part of the rating that came out, that why they didn't sing us lower than just from A- to B+, which is still very good. So, and then what you said, based on what we have now, without any rate increase, you're projecting the end of the year, you're gonna be okay. I can see you don't wanna kill savings by any means. And once again, that term is, for lack of a better term, we all understand what we're talking about here. So I could see a smaller increase, 5, 6, 7%, whatever it may be, to help plan for any volatility there could be, because you don't want to really get lower on that savings. Because that's basically an emergency fund.
That's the term. Right?
Yes.
That's what should be called emergency.
Yeah.
So you don't want that to dip lower. One tornado will come through town and I could kill it. Heaven forbid that happen, but, and then go ahead. Yes, it was recommended that we do this 5% for our emergency fund. But that's just a recommendation. The board is the one that sets that, and you decide, yeah, we'll go with the recommendation. But there's nothing saying, as has been said several times, you can lower that. Don't permanently lower it, temporarily lower it. It'd make it easier to meet that rating.
Well, to James, he said that we have the option to change our,
Reserve policy.
reserve policy at any time.
Yeah.
Which is not a bad thing to consider either. And I can't speak for the whole board, but and I'm pretty sure I'm right on track with them though. But we want to work with the community and the council as much as we can, because there's no sense in having all this bickering and fighting back and forth, and then it makes everybody look. It just makes everybody look bad, as far as I'm concerned. So I think I think that I know there has to be a rate increase. I don't want one. I pay the same bills that everybody else does, and I hate rate increases. Do I think it needs to be 11.2%? At this point in time, no. Can we look at it again in 6 months? I think so. Or 3 months. Yeah. Like what Councilman Haycraft said. Stair step it or look at it again, revisit it, and try to show that sense of unity between the two entities
In the community.
and the community. Right. That's my suggestion. And take it however you want, but
I would
that's.
suggest 6 months. It might be a little bit too much.
I think so. Yeah.
But you can review it, right? Like,
Yeah.
So you said that you were up $999,000 last month over what you budgeted in revenue, almost $1 million. You're talking about adding 1.4 million to your reserve account by this. Maybe you don't ever have another month like that the rest of this fiscal year, but maybe you do. I mean, that money can be put into reserves as well. It's additional income that wasn't budgeted, right?
Mm-hmm.
I'm like James, I'm not a math guy or finance guy whatsoever. That to me makes common sense. And maybe I'm missing something. But so you're right there, you're almost that $1.4 million or whatever that you're going to generate with this 11.2%. Even if you did have that a couple times, like I think, I'm not speaking for the council, but all I'm asking is what you guys are kind of saying is like, let's just take a look at it. Like, if you need some right now, 3%, 5%, whatever it winds up being for the next 3 months, 6 months, whatever you guys decide. Have a discussion amongst yourselves on, do we want to look at changing the policy? Like Lucas said, is there something that we can extend out to 18 months versus 12 months? I mean, there's all those different options. Like, it gives you some time and it shows good faith to the council who has to answer to the public that you guys are doing everything you can, absolutely everything you can, to try to lessen the burden.
Okay, so just two things. So for the additional revenue that wasn't budgeted for last month that Mayor McCoy just referenced, for the budgeted costs, those were higher though too, right? So it wasn't like you just have an extra $1 million that you can just throw in reserves.
So the revenues were only up $98,000. Total cash was what was up $1 million.
I misread that, I'm sorry.
And no, they're related. A lot of that was in the accounting, the year-end accounting for cash that we do at the end of the year. And so, yes, obviously anytime that we do take in more, anytime we have a positive net income, that's pretty well going to the reserve. And so, yeah, the fact that we've started the first 2 months with a positive net income does bode well. However, it's July and August. It's typically our highest income months as well. Does that answer?
Yeah.
Okay.
And then, sorry if this is super repetitive from a couple other questions, but the 1.25 debt ratio without the increase, we could get there without the increase, but that's assuming, right, that we did not have to pull from reserves for any reason. There would be no unforeseen psychotic weather event, or that capacity costs would, go from having increased 6,000% to maybe they increase by 12,000% or something crazy. If either of those things were to happen, that would eliminate that possibility of getting to the 1.25 ratio without having to implement an increase, right?
So a couple things there. Fortunately for capacity, we already know exactly what we're going to pay.
Because of hedging, right?
Primarily because of hedging, also because it's an annual auction that sets the price for that upcoming year. So capacity we're good on. But to your point, Energy, we don't know what we're gonna pay tomorrow
Right.
in total. Transmission, all of those other factors could wildly vary and could push it up one way or even push it down. And so, yes, to your point, if everything were to go perfectly ideal in the budget that we put together without any rate increase, we're tight. I'm showing a 1.29 coverage ratio, but you're talking about everything going perfect.
That's a blue skies
Right.
situation.
Yeah.
So to say we shouldn't implement an increase because we can get to that number without implementing one, that's saying we can get there if literally everything goes perfectly.
Right.
That doesn't mean that that's probably what's gonna happen.
Correct.
Okay.
Yep. And
That's
all
what
of
I thought,
my
I just wanted to make sure.
schooling, all of the consultants will tell you that that is not the way to run a business. You'd much be safer shooting for a 1.5, a 1.75
So we
coverage
need,
ratio.
we need to propose a number, right?
That's where we're at. I don't know how that works exactly, because we have in the agenda 11.2. Do we
So
have?
here's the thing, at this point, and I know I keep saying I'm not telling you what to do, but I'm telling you what to do. You need to let Paul do his presentation and then address the issue of if you want to do a lower number, would be my suggestion, because after all, he's worked on this presentation, and I presume he'd like to present it to you.
Well,
I think it's been presented. You have 5 things that we're asking them to approve.
correct, yeah. And I basically did present it during the rate hearing. And so whether, we were going to ask that management adopt the schedule of rates and fees as presented, which includes those 5 items on it.
So at this point, Cole, if you wanted to make a motion to amend the electrical rate, this would be a good time to do that.
Paul, can I ask for clarification one more time? Sorry to
Absolutely.
beat this to death. Let's say no rate increase happens and the debt-to-income ratio will be 1.29%,
We're supposed to be at 1.5, correct?
1.25.
1.25, okay.
So it's real close. At the end of the year, there will be that, let's call it profit, the P word, and it won't really be profit. Where will that money go?
That's
The
a-
additional 1.29 or 1.3?
That's a really good question. So, no rate increase. I like that.
I think we stayed too late.
Yeah.
That sounds like a plate in my head.
Ran out of tape recording.
It's okay. Carry on.
Carry on. All right. My computer did die, but 0% rate increase would produce a net income, a positive net income. We then take from that and we have to add back. I'm making it too complicated. Layman's terms. Sorry.
Tell me it up for us.
Yeah, so you have to consider capital spending into that, because like we talked about earlier, capital spending directly comes from that reserve. So at the most basic level, revenues are cash you bring in, operating expenses are cash that go out. For this next year, we are projecting that number, I don't want to say it wrong. Sorry. Yeah, it's not going to load. We're projecting a net income of that's with the rate increase of a certain amount. That would go directly into the reserve, but you've got to factor in capital spending. You also have to add back depreciation, because in the revenues that you brought in and then the expenses that you're
That's gonna pull from the net profit in the year.
Yeah.
Yes, for capital.
Yep, so that net income isn't just what's going into your reserve. There's those other factors of capital spending, of depreciation, and of debt service that you have to consider. Those are the 3 other options. So with 0% rate increase, we're projecting that net income, whatever it is. But with those other three factors, we're projecting a reduction to the reserve of $500,000, roughly,
With no increase.
with no increase.
Okay.
I would propose a 6% increase is what I would propose, as opposed to 11.5 and then look at it again in 6 months, is my thought on it.
Either need discussion or.
That's what
if
I'm
you-
asking
if you
for.
don't- If you don't get a second, it goes for lack of a second. Then you still need a motion to go with the original number.
Right.
I'll make a motion to second the 6% rate increase.
Do you want to put a date, times constraint for 6 months?
I think we should. I mean, it'd be, what, today's the 15th of September, in
No,
6.
What I'm saying is what happens if the weather becomes a factor or rates go through the roof? Maybe you have to readjust it to 6 to 3
So,
months.
so for purposes of what they're doing here tonight, I think that would have to be a separate motion that we'll reevaluate at a 6-month mark, or even maybe more appropriate, and I'm putting work on Paul, that if Paul goes, oh my gosh, guys, we need to look at this again. You know, if staff puts them on notice, they can look at doing rate hearings again at any time. Yeah, so, because again, there's nothing that locks them into an annual rate. You know, they can ask for a rate change as often as staff tells them that they want, and they believe it'd be prudent to do so, because obviously there's a lot of work involved and potential pushback, et cetera, but there's nothing that says they have to set the 6 months, but, you know, certainly you all could,
I mean,
by separate
it'd
motion,
be-
do something about re-reviewing the issue in 6 months.
We get a monthly report on it, but also we can always look at it in less than 6 months, depending.
My reasoning is, before we were asking for, I don't even remember, what was the last rate increase? 16%, and we got it down to what, 9? And we met the debt ratio at 9%. No.
You didn't hit it.
Oh, we didn't hit it, but we're there now.
We're closer with these 2 months.
We're gonna be at the end of this year.
Technically, what's
Okay.
gonna happen is at the year-end analysis that the accountants are doing, they're gonna see that June 30, 2025, we did not meet it again. So that's gonna come out and say, oh, I didn't meet it, so we may get downgraded again. But putting an increase in there that assures that we're gonna meet at least
Right.
that service ratio, we're gonna be in compliance with the lease purchase for the electric, which scares me to death. And I've verbalized it a few times, but don't want to start that again.
When do they rate you again?
That was,
Didn't it come out calendar end?
yeah,
December?
I think it was in December, January, where they did that. That's right.
It takes a long time because we have to finalize the budget or the past year, and that takes a lot of stuff, and that's not done until October-ish. Right?
Well, actually December. Yeah, our audit's not
December.
finalized till December, and so, yeah, as soon as that audit is posted, that's where that typically triggers them
Okay.
to do those ratings.
So I think we have a motion on the table for 6% rate increase.
You have a motion in a second.
This is
Motion
for
and a
electric.
second.
But the time constraint needs to be a separate motion.
If you feel the need to do it, my point is, you get monthly reports, and if staff tells you, we think we need to look at rates again, you could do it next month. Please don't, but you could.
The unfortunate thing is everybody, I mean, everything goes up. It's like any other thing you buy, gas, food, whatever. It all goes up. And unfortunately, we have to do a rate increase to stay ahead of it. I just want to try and help both us and the people and the council. You know, help everybody and just I know when you try to please everybody, you don't please anybody. But in this instance, maybe we can give some kind of good faith. That's my reasoning for saying 6%. Mike,
My cocktail napkin calculations say that it will add something to the reserves. Will it?
There's more profit than money. The fact of
Yeah.
what you're doing has to be monetized in goodwill for the community, so we get past a lot of this stuff. If you just let it go, they'll say, oh, well, you caved. Well, you know, you got pressure. That's no benefit. Say, we have looked at this, we've done our best, and you have to get that out to everybody. Eric can help us do that, so they understood that you were listening to them, that that's a benefit to them. Otherwise, you might as well just jack it up and go for it, you know, I mean.
Well, short of, go ahead,
I was
sorry.
just gonna say, I hope that when we do this and when it comes back around and we need to discuss it again, that the council will, you know, because I think part of this is kind of, everybody here has talked about it, we want to get along with the city of Hannibal, so I would anticipate that the support with, hey, they tried, they made it very clear, you know, I'm thinking bad news that we have to increase it again in 6 months. The council, hey, they really tried.
Makes it easier for us to sell it to the public when you have to come back with that higher percentage, because we're like, you know, we all showed up tonight and sat here for 4 hours, had the hard discussions, and, you know, you guys listened to the feedback that we're giving you from our constituents. To your point, yes, I mean, everybody did the best they could do.
So what do we do now? We have to do roll
Call the vote unless y'all have a further discussion.
Yeah. After looking at this a little closer, I'm in support of 6%. So do we need a roll call vote?
Wortworth,
Yes.
Cookson,
Yes.
Painter,
yes.
Peters.
Yes.
And then you all would still need to vote on all the others. Look, I want it done right so we don't have to come back.
It's fine.
That's the one I printed that from last one.
Yes.
It's Cole's fault. He didn't do the motion right.
I'm
No.
so sorry.
Seriously, though, you all should vote on the other 4.
No, that's fine.
Vote on what?
The other four bullets we got.
Oh, okay.
There's a 3% on water.
I got it, I know, I got it.
Molly Brown to the cities. There's the addition of volatile fluoride.
Water and wastewater treatment
All right,
testing.
do I hear a motion to increase the water rates by approximately 3% to continue the recommended rate track from USS cost of service study from 2018?
So moved.
2022, actually. So moved, do I have a second?
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, yes.
Sorry.
Cookson,
Yes.
Painter,
Yes.
Peters.
Yes.
Motion passed.
All right. Do I have a motion to increase water and wastewater treatment testing fees as described earlier?
I'll make a motion.
And a second?
I'll second.
All in favor?
Wortworth,
Yes.
Cookson,
Yes.
Painter,
Yes.
Peters.
Do I have a motion to add the Hannibal Convention Visitor Bureau and Molly Brown House to the list of entities receiving free utilities?
If we have a minute, I'd like to discuss this a little bit.
Okay.
I'm still against this whole thing because I don't see the benefit of this. I know the city owns it, but the people don't use it. So I'm not okay saying, yes, we're going to charge the people more money for something they don't use, because it's only $12,000 a year, give or take. But in 10 years, that's $120,000, 240 and 20. It just snowballs. And then we're gonna have to increase rates again. So that's why I'm not seeing the benefit of this.
Here's your counter argument. And let me say, I don't care what you all do. I mean, I don't care what you all do. I hear your argument, but the counter argument is this. The utility belongs to the city. The city should not have to pay for electricity from its own utility. If it's an entity of the city, they should get provided power because it's the city's utility. And when you talk about, well, it's the people, yeah, but it's a question of, are they going to take it out of their left pocket and put it into their right by charging a city entity for the costly electric? You're just taking it out of the left pocket and putting it in the right. I think that, and then from the standpoint of, from a political standpoint, having sat in with staff meetings, not so much council meetings, it's a bone of contention for them. And I'm not telling you, you have to roll over for that, et cetera, et cetera. I'm just telling you it is a political football regarding because I get to hear their perspective when I sit in on a staff meeting, which is, why is a city department paying for electricity from our own utility? Now, I'm not saying I necessarily am taking that position. I'm wanting you to understand that is the argument coming from their side, and that's where this is coming from.
Well, the flavor of Cole's argument hits me pretty square. The ratepayers are now subsidizing all the city buildings for utilities from not having to pay extra taxes. That's true. On the other hand, the Visitors Convention Bureau are paid by outsiders, non-Hannibal taxpayers, via the bed tax. And there's a lot of money going out that's being brought in. They've got bonds they're paying for, a lot of other things. So I'm just looking at the source of the revenue.
And again,
won't
remember,
be spread amongst the taxpayers.
I'm not a member of your board, and I'm not taking a position. The only reason I offered that up is I am aware of where this is coming from having been in staff meetings and heard that other opinion articulated. So again, I promise I'm not trying to sway you all one way or the other. I want you to know where it's coming from and what that position is on the other side.
This was brought up 2 meetings ago or last meeting.
2 meetings
I don't remember the answer. The board pays for its utilities, correct?
Not for this building, for everything else.
Well, City Hall, yes. Every other city building, yes.
No, the Board of Public Works buildings.
They
Is
pay
what I was
for their
asking.
utilities at the wastewater treatment plant and
Yeah.
other plant, but they do not pay themselves for utilities for this building.
That's correct.
Utilities here. The electric pays for electricity, the water pays for the water, out of their normal operating budget.
Allocated out.
It's allocated
There's
out to
nothing
normal.
look at your.
It's not a check,
Look at your packet, it says there's no fee, and your rate fee that you're just getting ready to vote on, it says.
but there's still a cost to buy that electricity that we have.
Matt, it says it in that rate thing, it says for that sewer treatment plant, it's this per kilowatt hour, and for the
Because
other
sewer
building,
department is paying electric.
this building, it says no charge. Read your own writing.
There is not a bill generated out of it, but we still pay our own utilities. Electric here is not free.
You carry on hospital, so that way you can see it.
All right, we are on, do we have a motion to,
I'll show you this, guys. This is straight out of your, this is what you have projected, and I'll just show you right here. Customer charge, Hannibal's Service Center, no charge, and then it lists out what your other charges are for your other locations there.
Who do you think pays for that electricity?
Who pays for all the electricity? The people that we work for, the people you work for, the ratepayers.
Which I am a ratepayer.
Me too.
But electric pays for the electric portion.
Okay.
And the only reason I ask that is because the argument you said, why are we paying for it? And I know you don't have a dog in the hunt.
I don't have a dog in the fight, and I understand the point you're making. My only point in speaking up was to tell you, what their theory was, because understanding that the city owns the utility, the board is the entity that is set to run the utility for the city. So that's been the theory in the past of, why should we pay you for electricity that belongs to us? Now, to John's point, they're not funded by the general fund, and they do have a separate tax. Now, I'm not trying to take a position either way, but I'm just saying John did correctly articulate the fact that they do have a separate tax base.
And it's not the citizens of Hannibal, unless the citizen
Well,
stays overnight.
It's hotel. It's the hotel tax is how they're funded.
That's on both of them.
No. Well,
Visitor.
Molly Brown, I'm trying to think. Yeah, Molly Brown's being funded by the bed tax also. That would be correct.
The point being from the other side then, is that if they did not have to pay the electricity or utilities, they could use that money to promote Hannibal someplace else.
Oh, sure.
And I think that's where the side of it.
So where are we? Do we have a motion?
Make a motion to pass it.
Do we have a motion to add HBCB and Molly Brown to free utilities? Having no motion, we'll move on.
So it looks like fails for lack of a motion.
The next one is to increase the rate for kilowatt hours delivered to HBCU by net metering customer. This is to credit the customer representing void purchase. Okay, this is, yeah,
The windmill and
yeah,
yeah.
$4.83 a month.
This is to buy back the power, correct?
Yeah. I think the point that Paul made earlier was just to make it compatible and the same as the intention of how much we pay in the
If I've got
payback amount.
solar panels on my roof and I hear you guys talking about how purchase power costs have been going up, and up, and my rate that I'm getting paid back has stayed the same, it would cause consternation. So we do need to increase that.
Do you have any idea how much board buys back?
Yeah, it's very little. It's in your packet every month,
yeah, it's
but
very-
it's
you gotta find it.
typically
Negligible.
1 to 2 customers a month, and somewhere a couple hundred kilowatt hours.
Most of the time they have no revenue.
Right. So this past month it was 457 kilowatt hours. We have
Totals, 9 cents. Or
1 wind and 16 solar. Yep.
You just need a motion.
make a
if
motion.
you're gonna-
Okay, got a motion and a second. All in favor?
Colwell.
Yes.
Fort Worth.
Yes.
Cookson.
Yes.
Painter.
Yes.
Peters.
Okay. We already heard comments from our,
I'm done commenting. I've helped enough.
John,
go ahead, yeah, absolutely.
So, obviously I can't do that tonight, we have a council meeting coming up. The council, discussed part of the Molly Brown House and the Commissioner Visit Bureau, and we're in agreement when I met with Aaron, I don't know, a couple months ago, that we wouldn't be paying those utilities. Based on that conversation, I directed both of those, or that organization, that they're no longer paying those utilities, and we will continue to do that. The council gave them a very clear directive and the board on that, so at this time, until I hear back from the council and they make a decision, we're not gonna be paying those utilities. Thank you.
Do I have a motion to go into closed session?
Hey, wait, I got one thing. That's on new business.
Oh, new business, surplus item.
I just have a truck to surplus, a 2003 F-250 with roughly 56,000 miles.
We have a motion to send that to salvage,
We'll put it on Purple Wave.
put it on that way.
So moved.
And a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Can I make one comment?
Go ahead.
Just for a matter of information, talking about capacity. We've done a great job of getting the capacity taken care of for this year. The capacity we got came from solar fields. And what's going to happen is it's going to decrease over the next 4 years to where while we're good this year, we're not good from those forward years. And so like Paul said, we've had a struggle getting those, finding those. We will still be in zone 5 looking for that. So just know that over the next 4, until we get that generation built, we're going to be struggling to fill that capacity. And so that volatility is still going to be there. I just want to get that out there. I'm done.
Okay.
So,
So I need a motion to go into closed session pursuant to 6-1.
I make a motion to convene in closed session in accordance with section 610.02112 of the Missouri Sunshine Law to convene in closed session and discuss contracts. Admitting John Ortworth, Cole Painter, Kelly Cookson, Lucas Peters, Darren Gordon, Matt Munslinger, Paul Trinhill, Courtney Harris, and James Lemon.
Second.
Second.
All in favor?
aye.
Aye.